one writer supporting 200 to 220 engineers or developers? How do you do it?
Can my documentation come out when my users need it? Whiteboarding rather than like writing a doc. And that seems to kind of help them break down concepts a little bit more easily.
Now, what kind of strategies do you use to translate complex technical content into a very clear and accessible documentation?
I know it's kind of a scary time and people are kind of worried about, is AI going to take my job?
Now, how do you balance between the speed of delivery versus quality?
If the AI is being trained on content that is poor, that doesn't have good quality, and that is difficult to understand, then
welcome to the Knowledge Base Ninjas podcast, where Gauri Ramkumar of Document 360 finds the best SaaS self-service knowledge bases in the world and then interviews their creators. Let's get started with today's episode.
Good day, everyone. Welcome to the Knowledge Base Ninjas podcast. With me today, we've got Erin Rovelstad, Senior Technical Writer at Google. Hi, Erin. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for being my guest and sharing your knowledge with everyone. As always, please help us understand a little bit more about yourself and how did you get into this amazing journey of documentation?
Sure, yeah. So I'm a technical writer at Google. I've been one for about 5 years now. When I started doing documentation, it was about 7 years ago. So when I graduated from college, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I had no idea that technical writing existed. And it was also the Great Recession. So I graduated right into that and I went, okay, this is scary. I'm going back to grad school, just delay the job market for a little while. And I thought maybe I'd go into academia and doing the master's program that I chose. I discovered that I did not want to go into academia. So I graduated from that and I did freelance writing. I ended up in publishing for a little bit. And was kind of just bouncing around from opportunity to opportunity. And one day I kind of like in frustration, I Googled, how do you make money as a writer? I expected it not to give me any sort of good response, be a famous novelist or that's it. And it actually came back with something about technical writing.
Okay.
I started looking into it and it actually sounded really interesting. And I actually remembered that when I had been doing my master's degree a couple years prior, there was a program at the college, the same school, for professional and technical writing. So I actually applied again to that program and got in. And it was a really great experience at that program. It really taught me a lot about professional and technical writing. Taught me that it was indeed what I wanted to do. It led me to an internship, which kind of moved me out to the Bay Area. And I actually worked at LinkedIn for a couple of years and then moved to Google. And that's where I've been ever since.
Great. Wow, what a great journey you have, Erin. And thank you for all the contributions to those big companies already. Now, given the varied audiences or consumers you've worked with, what kind of strategies do you use to translate complex technical content into a very clear and accessible documentation?
Yeah. So one of the interesting things about my role at Google is that I am a technical writer for other developers at Google. No one outside of Google is ever going to see any of the writing that I do. So my audience is already quite technical. The hard part is making sure that the technical, like where do you find the knowledge that they know? Because sure, they're technical, they know C++, they can code, they're geniuses, but where is the gap? What are the thing they're trying to do with their job? What is the question that they have? And one of the ways that I kind of try to figure that out is by really building a close relationship with the developers that I'm working with.
Right.
I also talk extensively to my audience. So in this case, internal developers that aren't on my team. I try to make sure that I'm answering the questions that they have. I also take a look at our internal support Q&A. I've been working on trying to digest those questions and find insights in them. And that's actually a really great, people hate surveys.
Yeah.
They're too busy. They're too busy to do surveys. They're too busy even to click like a thumbs up, thumbs down on the doc.
Yeah,
But
or
they will,
very often filled with inaccurate information. True.
yeah. But if they're running into problems in their job, they'll often just ask a question from the experts. And so this is a really good place to find where the gaps are in the documentation.
Brilliant. Now, you did explain that you work very closely with the developers and try to see what is the knowledge gap. Now, what kind of KPIs or metrics do you measure when it comes to the quality and adoption of the content that you're producing for them?
Yeah, so this is a great question. Some of the docs metrics that I use, we have this measurement of freshness. So like how when the doc was last updated, it kind of helps us keep an idea of how maintained the documentation set is and how trustworthy the docs might be. This isn't like the best indicator of quality, but it is a good indicator of like developer engagement with content and like it helps people understand when they're coming into the doc. Okay, this was updated within the last 12 months. It's probably mostly up to date. I can probably reach out to the person who's listed as an owner. You know, if I get to some page and it's like last updated 2016, it's like, this is probably not
Yeah.
correct anymore.
Yeah.
I also I also use other metrics like just qualitative ones where the developers are reporting problems. If someone gives me feedback on something that's like, hey, this documentation is working really well, that's definitely a really good indicator of quality. More often than not, people don't report positive feedback. It's mostly the negative ones that we hear.
Yeah.
So that negativity bias is difficult, but it's also helpful because it indicates, hey, this isn't working. This definitely needs another look. This is yeah, erroneous, all
Yeah.
sorts of fun problems can be surfaced that way.
Absolutely. I mean, or we have to just take it like everything is working perfectly when there is no comments or feedback, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, in a company like Google and many other organizations where you have worked, now how do you balance between the speed of delivery versus quality?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, speed of delivery is really difficult on my team, especially. I am the only technical writer for an organization of about 220 developers. So, speed is often a trade-off that we have because it is internal facing. Speed is not as critical as it is for a lot of my colleagues who are external facing technical writers who have very strict release schedules and
Right.
follow them. And that's much more critical. For me, trying to find this trade-off between can my documentation come out when my users need it? Not necessarily right before they're going to need it, but in enough time and definitely quality is a huge focus. One of the things that I do is rely a lot on developer contributions just because I am at a ratio of like 1 to 220.
Yeah.
So if developers are able to explain a concept, I will often provide just reviews for them and make some suggestions about documentation best practices. But I find developers are really good at explaining these content that they're writing about. They're the experts in it. They've built it and they're really good at explaining to their colleagues in like whiteboarding sessions. And so usually when they come to me with like a request, I ask them to think how they would explain it when they were whiteboarding rather
Mhm.
than like writing a doc. And that seems to kind of help them break down concepts a little bit more easily.
Understand, understand. Now, you are working with engineering teams, and how do you envision the role of technical writing to evolve over the next years?
Definitely a topic on everyone's minds
Yeah,
with AI. I think that technical writing is actually becoming even more important in the age of AI. We're the ones who make sure that the content is digestible and human readable. If the AI is being trained on content that is poor, that doesn't have good quality, and that is difficult to understand, then the AI is going to, keep producing content that is difficult to understand and of poor quality. So I think that technical writing actually becomes even clearer and more focused in the future. We have to make sure that our content is good, that the LLMs are ingesting good data sources, learning from that, and that the content that those things create will continue to help our users. So I think it just kind of speeds up velocity. I know it's kind of a scary time and people are kind of worried about, is AI going to take my job? And
Yeah.
I'm hopeful that that will not happen. I'm
Mhm.
hopeful that people will see the value that technical writers bring to the table and that they will see the value in having good content sources for large language models.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think, as you rightly said, this is a question that keeps lingering in majority of their minds. But then everybody I spoke to exactly mentions the same thing, what you just spoke about. Brilliant. Now, you did tell me that you are one writer supporting 200 to 220 engineers or developers. How do you do it? Now, what skills or habits you have that keeps you not too busy, but at the same time deliver what they want?
Yeah, definitely. I early on developed a prioritization process. I also just have a lot of conversations with leads in my organization and other developer teams. Like I do monthly check-ins with a lot of teams just to be
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, are you maintaining your docs? How are things going? What's coming up? Just kind of get a sense of what's going on all around the organization to make sure that when I'm building my prioritization, that I'm focusing on the key things. I also yeah, I've also been started coming to the team's OKR planning, objectives and key results. I'm not sure if
Yeah.
that's an internal to Google term or not. Basically, our larger team prioritization process.
Okay.
And yeah,
So
those are
basically,
very
you interact with them very closely as much as possible just to make sure the priorities that you have is aligns with the business need and the team's need.
exactly, and that I'm prioritizing the things that are the most critical. Any documentation that's like in seriously bad shape.
Great. Now let's move on to our rapid fire round question. Any documentation related resources you've consumed recently or you wanted to share with our audiences today?
Yeah, so I recently went to the Write the Docs conference in
Mhm.
Portland. I think just a great opportunity to learn from all people in all sorts of parts of the discipline.
Yeah.
I've also been reading Manny Silva's Docs as Tests book recently. It's really fascinating to be able to think of how like you can take documentation and actually test it to make sure that it's accurate. So that's fascinating.
Nice. Now, what comes to your mind when you hear documentation? That one word.
Um, Flexibility. I think that it's really important to be agile and flexible when you're working with the developer audience, especially, and to be able to meet the developers where they are.
Okay. Okay. Great. Flexibility. Now, a piece of advice you would give to your 20-year-old self?
My 20-year-old self had no desire to listen to any sort of advice. I thought she knew everything. So I think the advice I would give is there are no wrong turns along your path. For a while, when I was getting the first master's degree, and I decided I didn't want to do academia. I thought I'd made a mistake. I was like, oh, I'm in so much debt now. I thought if I didn't make those decisions and go along that path, I never would have discovered technical writing. I
Mhm.
never would have learned a lot of things that helped me be a better technical writer. So I think that there's no wrong turns on the path.
All right. Everything is for something good.
Yes, eventually.
Fantastic, Erin. And yes, you have amazed us with a lot of great updates and particularly how you manage your time and deliverables, given that you're only one writer supporting so many developers. Anything else you would like to add to our audiences today?
That's a great question. And I don't think so. I don't think
Okay,
I have
that's
anything else.
that's fine.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking your time and spending this episode with us. And all the very best for your future projects. And yeah, let's stay in touch.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Knowledge Base Ninjas podcast. Please head to iTunes, rate, and provide honest feedback on the podcast. See you next week.